Okay, I'm going to respond to this guy called Macabre Storytelling. I'll just call him Mac for short. Now, this guy talks about misinformation about the Boy Scouts of America, and he spreads misinformation himself. And then this guy tries to tell guys, young guys, about manhood. He's got lessons in manhood. And Mac, you were doing damage, not good. Now, we'll get into this. First, we'll start off with the Boy Scouts of America, right?
There's nothing more exhilarating than pointing out the shortcomings of others, is there?
I agree with that. I'm going to point out the shortcomings of this guy, and it's going to feel good to me.
A while back, I had the pleasure of participating in a panel hosted by WIC TV, the topic being whether or not male spaces are being eroded in today's day and age.
Well, there's no debate. They are. Mac, women forced themselves into men's locker rooms in the 1970s. Women reporters said, "We're allowed to invade your space." Male reporters weren't allowed into the women's. So there's no debate here.
And, naturally, the subject of the Boy Scouts of America came up, namely how in 2019 the organization made the decision to allow girls to join, and earlier this year,
It made a decision that was pushed by feminists. It was by feminist organizations. Now, this is very important, Mac. I want you to see this, right? When I asked the question, the women's group now push for girls to enter the Boy Scouts, it says yes. The National Organization for Women now has consistently advocated for girls to gain full memberships in the Boy Scouts of America, calling the organization policies discriminatory and outdated. So know what I did? Know what I did, Mac? I saved this link. I didn't screen cap it. I saved the link. Guess what happened to that link overnight? I went back to it this morning to bring it up like now, and this is what it turned into. The Boy Scouts of America decision to allow girls to join was driven by internal organizational goals rather than endorsement from external groups. Do you notice how this one contradicts this one? Mac, do you notice that? This happened overnight, the same link. So I had to go back and ask specifically about the women's group now for it to come out and be honest. So Google is feminist indoctrinated. I bet you didn't know that, Mac. I bet you didn't know that.
officially changed its name to Scouting America. I am sure many of you have seen the hubbub that came about as a result of these decisions, with many conservative outlets lamenting the push by progressives to
I'm not conservative. I'm not a conservative, Mac. And these guys are framing it all wrong. These aren't progressives. The feminist hate movement is not progressive. The KKK is not progressive, and neither is the feminist hate movement. They are hardcore right wingers.
affect one of the last remaining bastions of male camaraderie with their feminist agenda, or something.
No, not or something. You didn't have the guts, dude, to make a stand. Because they are. The National Organization for Women now has advocated for girls. That's a fact. That was well hidden, by the way, by Google. So if you don't believe it, why don't you just come out and say it's wrong, right? No, it shows you that you are wishy-washy. that you're not willing to make a stand.
And naturally, after doing about 10 minutes of research, you will come to see that this narrative is utterly false.
No, dude. It's not utterly false. Because I bet you plugged it in, you got this. Didn't you? Because I got this originally, and then it turned into this overnight. Do you see the difference? So you were fooled, dude. And the reason why you were fooled, Mac, because you have no idea how vicious the feminist hate movement is. And you're in denial. It's not that you just are ignorant, you're in denial.
Now, I want to
There was absolutely no reason to make the Boy Scouts co-ed. None. You can't mention one thing to be gained from it.
make clear that this video is not meant to make a case for this change one way or the other. You may
I disagree. I disagree. I think this you are pushing definitely that it's a good thing.
finish this video and still believe that the BSA letting girls join shouldn't have happened. I simply want to give you the proper context as to how it all came about.
Well, you will fail, dude. You will fail.
First, it is important that we establish the relationship between the BSA and the GSA. The Girl
But I'm going to cut ahead of this, right? Because I want guys to get to his bullshit about lessons for manhood, right? Roadhouse, okay? So let me skip ahead, okay? Well, I better not skip ahead. We'll continue.
I want to make clear that this video is not meant to make a case for this change one way or the other. You may finish this video and still believe that the BSA letting girls join shouldn't have happened. I simply want to give you the proper context as to how it all came about. First, it is important that we establish the relationship between the BSA and the GSA, the Girl Scouts of America. Namely, that they are completely separate entities. Yes, they have parted with one another over the years, but it's not like
That's right. The girls have their own group, so there's absolutely no reason to do this.
they are two separate branches of a parent company with joint oversight and/or management. They are completely unaffiliated,
Right.
with different priorities, programming, and even merit badge structure.
Yeah, they have different priorities. You know why? Because girls aren't expected to do what boys do.
This is vital to
The Boy Scouts came about by a guy who was originally involved in the military. That's why they do all this outdoor shit. And girls aren't expected to join the military ever, Mac.
understand, since one of the main retorts against forcing the BSA to allow girls is that it isn't fair that the GSA wasn't forced to allow boys, thus demonstrating gender bias.
It is gender bias, exactly. Just like female reporters can enter men's locker rooms and not vice versa. If you don't see it as gender biased, you are gender biased.
Which is really ironic considering, for one, the BSA wasn't forced to do anything.
No, dude. They weren't forced, but they were pressured. The National Organization for Women has consistently advocated. They've been at this for years. For years. Right? So you trying to frame it like this is just false.
We'll get to that later. But two, it was the GSA themselves that were the most irate about this change. So much so that the GSA sued the BSA for trademark infringement.
What?
While the organization itself is called the Boy Scouts of America, the Boy Scouts is also the name of their flagship program for scouts aged 11 to 17, and was rebranded as Scouts BSA following the decision to allow girls to join.
You know, the pressure to make girls join The girls weren't fighting to join this group. This women's group who hates the boys wants them. They want to erase the name boy. Anything positive, they want to make gender neutral or make it for girls. Anything positive is either female or it's gender neutral. Anything negative, they want it guys. They want boys or gender neutral.
The suit that the GSA filed argued that this would lead to confusion, with parents assuming the two had merged and or that the GSA no longer exists, thus negatively impacting enrollment. In fact, the more you look into this, I think you will come away with the impression that both the BSA's decision to allow girls to join and specifically the flagship program's name change were at least partially done as a deliberate diss to the GSA. I don't have any firm evidence of this.
No, it wasn't, dude. No, it wasn't. You don't even know what you are talking about.
Just feels like there's some bad blood somewhere in the mix. Right about now, you may be wondering why the GSA would have to worry about the BSA siphoning their membership, or why the GSA didn't counter by letting boys into their organization.
Right.
And that is because for years, both Girl Scouts and parents have lamented that the GSA's curriculum simply isn't up to par with the BSA's.
Again, it's because they're girls, dude. They're not meant to. It's just something for girls to do. You yourself have this bullshit video talking about lessons in manhood. Now, what do you think the Boy Scouts are about? Now, I'm not going to waste any more time on this because this guy claimed that parents wanted these girls to join. They didn't. This disgusting hate movement wanted them to join. Because I want to get into this. Lessons in Manhood by this guy.
There's nothing more exhilarating than pointing out the shortcomings of others, is there?
Yeah, this is exhilarating. I agree.
This video was made possible due to those who support me on Patreon. And I'd like to give a big shout out.
My videos are responsible by me. I don't need for someone to bribe me to do what's right. Mac.
To patrons Chris Hutchison, Dan Ray, Flake, Harrison,
Don't
Joseph
care.
Abel in discussing men's issues, specifically relaying my own experience in the pickup artist and red pill movements, if you can call them that, in an attempt to prevent other young men from falling into these toxic shitholes. However, while I have had the pleasure of having...
Then why are you talking about lessons of manhood? Why are you doing the exact same thing as they do? Mac?
many guys reach out to me to say that I help them realize how these so-called alpha male influencers are actually just emotionally stunted man-children.
No. They're grifters. They're probably not emotionally stunted. They may or may not be. The thing is, they're grifters, dude. They're scam artists who know they are scamming, which in a way puts them above you, Mac, because you don't realize you're pulling a scam. You believe in your own spiel.
Only seek to shamelessly monetize their insecurities, there remains a missing piece of the solution.
But they're not necessarily insecure. Just because they're scamming guys, that doesn't make them insecure. Just means they're scamming.
While my father wasn't much of a presence in my youth, I was fortunate enough to be surrounded.
Why wasn't he a present in your youth? Because he was a provider workhorse for mommy. That's what you get with standard gender roles. And that gender role that your father, of being out and working all the time, that was set by mommy. Mac. If you're such a progressive, how come you grew up in such a conservative lifestyle?
Surrounded by many positive male role models, family, teachers, coaches, which gave me a healthy and diverse template of masculinity to live my life in accordance with.
Masculinity is a term men have to reject because it's nebulous. It can't be disproven. It moves around depending on what other people say it is. There's no actual standard definition. It's to keep guys grinding, Mac. That includes you. If you're worried about masculinity, you will be forever grinding.
But what about the men who are not so lucky, who only turn to these grifting shitbags because, sadly, they didn't have a positive male role model in their life?
This is not about role models, dude. Guys want to get the girl. Dad doesn't teach them how to get the girl. These guys are desperate. They go to whoever they think has had success. That's why they fall into the scam. Now, if you're going about manhood, which you are, then you're all about getting the girl as well. You're not about improving themselves as people. So you are actually, in a way, better than Tate, but actually worse. You aren't slimy like Tate. You don't mean to scam these guys, but you are a part of the scam.
They could look to for guidance. Even if they decide to reject these toxic views of masculinity, who can they look to give them a better one? And thus, welcome to my new video series, Lessons in Manhood, in which I discuss male role models in media whom I believe young dudes can look to for guidance to help them grow into men of true quality. Just
only some of those are worthwhile, dude, what you showed there. Some of your examples are poor.
a heads up, don't expect to see a character like James Bond make an appearance in this series. While there are...
I'm glad you brought him up, dude, because you go on in your series of James Bond of how important it is that Bond girls are fleshed out and have agency. I want you to remember that. When Roadhouse shows average guys who get beaten up to make the hero look good, one-dimensional guys, I want you to remember that because I'm going to be bringing it up again.
There are some good qualities one can take from a character like Bond. I find there is a danger in looking to more sensationalized or power fantasy-esque portrayals of masculinity.
No, this is just a fantasy that guys can enjoy. Guys don't actually believe they're going to be Bond. They just put themselves in his shoe and say, yeah, I'm living vicariously through him. You know why? Because Bond gets the girl. He kicks ass and he gets the girl. And that's a fantasy that you want too, Mac.
For direction. Namely, it resulting in young men thinking that being a man is defined primarily by superficial things like driving sick-ass cars and banging scores of women.
That's not superficial, dude. That's what guys want. That's what you want, Mac. You want to bang beautiful women just like me and the next guy. It's nothing superficial about that. Just because guys desire it does not make it superficial. If it's not about getting the girl, then tell me, what's the great goal that guys are supposed to be going for? Everything you say in this video will end up leading back to banging the women.
Which is how you wind up with dudes idolizing walking anal tumors like Andrew Tate and Justin Waller, who themselves are merely little boys cosplaying as men by flaunting...
No, they're not little boys, dude. They're men of low character because they're scamming other guys. But they are typical male. They find out, they compete with other men to get the girl. They find out what they have to do, and they go for it. And frankly, they're superior to you because they're honest about what they want.
Their wealth and bragging about their sexual exploits, all the while lacking any semblance of actual substance. This series aims to highlight more practical and emotionally focused lessons any young man can incorporate into their life, even if they aren't some rich
That's about the only one there, right? I've seen that movie. That's a good example, right?
ass whooping alpha Chad. And so naturally, I have decided to roundhouse
Ass with an alpha Chad, and here you've got a movie which features one.
kick this series off by discussing. I am sure some of you may be confused as to why I would choose Roadhouse as an example of a piece of media that depicts healthy masculinity.
I'm not confused at all, dude. You want to get the girl. That's what you liked. This hero here, he gets the girl. Again, if you're using Roadhouse as an example, you were no better than Andrew Tate. You were part of the scam.
Since, if you have not seen the film, you probably just think of it as that movie where Patrick Swayze beats the soul out of motherfuckers.
Yeah. See, this is what I'm talking about. See that guy he beat up? He's a one-dimensional character. He's a nobody. So why do James Bond girls have to be these, rounded characters with deep motivations? Yeah, Roadhouse, which you brag up, has all these one-dimensional nobodies who get sacrificed for the hero to make the hero look good. Mac.
And while that isn't entirely inaccurate, overall it is a surprisingly astute examination of the destructive effects of violence that champions the ability to control one's emotions instead of the other way around, and to not allow attempts by others to antagonize you make you compromise your principles and inner fortitude. Case in point, let's take a look at the film's opening scene, in which we see how professional head bouncer, or cooler, James Dalton, handles an altercation with a pair of belligerent bar buffoons.
Yeah, see, bar buffoons, dude. Hey, this guy here, what's his character? What's his motivation? Why is he acting out like this? Maybe we should understand him. No, he's just an object. It's all right for men to be nothings in films. According to you, you have no problem with this, Mac.
While Dalton initially attempts to resolve the situation in amicable fashion, allowing the two idiots to walk out of the club on their own accord, one of the men attacks Dalton with a knife.
That wouldn't happen. For him to attack that guy with two bodyguards standing there? Sorry, this is straight out of anime bullying. All right.
And then challenges him to a fight. Dalton appears to accept said challenge as he follows the two morons outside, the other bouncers standing back as Dalton approaches the two men.
Now, this is where you can't read the room, dude. You get this scene completely wrong.
Them egging him on, enticing him into a fight, as Dalton readies himself for the impending battle and prepares to strike. Now, I don't
No, he didn't prepare to strike, dude. He was playing those guys.
need to tell you what happens next. This is clearly the part where our hero demonstrates his combative prowess, where he easily beats the shit out of these two chodes, thus proving to everyone watching, including we the audience, that he is the fucking man.
They wouldn't do that, though, in this case, because it would be the opposite.
But instead...
So here we are, let's go. Come on, hotshot, come on, let's do it. Go, dirtball, where you going? Hey!
I am sure many of you who have not seen the film might be a bit surprised by this. I know I was when I first saw it. Why would the writers make our hero look so scared and weak right after?
They're not, dude. You don't know what you're talking about. He looks strong. See all those guards there? See all those body, what do you call them, bouncers? They're there to do his bidding. So he actually looks superior to them by saying, these guys aren't worth my time. When when the mafia boss has other guys beat you up, people don't see him as weak. They see him as strong. He's in control. He has other men to do his bidding.
out of the gate? And the answer
See that? See all these guys? Now, if these guys weren't standing there, these two would run in and force that guy to fight. No, he's got guys there to do his bidding. So anyone watching this film will say, this guy's the man. He's the mafia don. Don't you know basic human psychology?
is because they understand that walking away from a senseless fight is in fact the manliest thing one can do.
No, 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 dude. He didn't walk away from a senseless fight. He disrespected those guys. He said, you guys aren't worth my time.
While a younger, more insecure man might find themselves easily enticed by these two idiots, feeling compelled to prove their masculinity out of fear that refusing to fight would be tantamount to cowardice,
Well, he wouldn't be in charge then if he felt like that. He wouldn't be the head bouncer.
Dalton is a man completely secure in his own masculinity. In stark contrast to Tweedledee and Tweedledum over here, who seem desperate to prove that they are big tough guys, Dalton doesn't feel the need to prove himself to them, or anyone else for that matter. That is not to say that there is anything weak about getting heated when someone comes at you in such an aggressive manner.
This is all this back and forth shit, right?
Getting angry or even scared is nothing to be ashamed of in a situation like this, as it could
But he wouldn't be the great hero. He wouldn't be the manly man if he was scared. Remember, these are lessons in manhood that you're giving. You give lip service to men's vulnerability, but you're idolizing the man who lacks fear.
easily escalate into something more dangerous. But the key is to not allow said feelings to dictate your actions, to recognize and accept your emotions.
He didn't have to get emotional there, dude. He has his lackeys holding those guys. He was in complete control. It's later on in the movie where pressure is added. He's really challenged that things change.
Yes, but not allow them to supersede your better judgment. In most cases, even in a situation where you want nothing more than to beat the living shit out of some idiot and teach him a lesson, the best thing you can do is simply
Be nice.
as Dalton relays to the crew of the Double Deuce later in the film after he is hired to help clean up the joint. A piece of advice that the other bouncers can't even fathom. Be nice to a man who gets in my face, who calls me a cocksucker? And the answer is yes, because as Dalton makes firm and clear,
It's nothing personal.
and taking it personally denotes poor emotional control and a lack of self-discipline. Now, before I continue, I want to make something clear. While the lesson I want to relate to you is that there is strength in being able to walk away from a fight, that is not to say that it is not vital to be prepared to throw down if the other
There you go, dude. Hey, there's nothing wrong with walking away, but you got to throw down. You got to fight, man. Right. Sometimes you got to fight when you're a man.
other party continues to escalate the situation. Being able to defend both yourself and those you care about is, I would say, an essential part of being a man.
So being a provider and attack dog. So being ready to fight for other people. So you're just a servant. That's manhood to you. Right. How are you different from Tate again?
In addition to being a great way to build confidence. This doesn't mean you have to be a hulking monstrosity, but simply being in decent shape via whatever your physical hobby of choice may be.
If you were a real man, you wouldn't need those. See how the manhood gate can be moved? Real man, you just let yourself get out of shape and say, yeah, I'm not about fighting. Someone tries to break in, I'll just call the police. I don't want to get involved in violence. See how that works, Mac?
You'll always feel more secure knowing that you have the capability to defend yourself should you need to. However, said capability doesn't mean much if you don't possess the self-control to harness it. In fact, it can make matters even worse, since now you are someone with the temperament of a toddler but the strength of a grown man. A perfect
Now, this is where you get it wrong too, right? You describe this guy as a kid, which he isn't. He's simply sadistic. The character you're showing is a sadist. He likes to fight and he likes to hurt people. That's not necessarily childish. All kinds of grown, mature people are sadistic by nature.
example of the harm this can cause is found later in the film in the character of Morgan, one of the other bouncers at the Double Deuce. Despite him being more than physically capable, having the build of a fucking rhino, his temper reveals him as not only a detriment to his trade, but a destructive force in general. When we are first introduced to Morgan, we see him take care of some drunk idiot grabbing a woman. However, while he rightfully apprehends the asshole, he then proceeds to toss him headfirst into a table of patrons.
So this guy's an asshole just because he came onto a woman? Wow.
Who were just minding their own business, thus risking a bunch of innocent bystanders getting hurt. Morgan is either unable to control his emotions, thus resulting in him flying off the handle the moment
He may not be angry, though. He simply doesn't care about other people. He's not empathetic.
is put into an even remotely stressful situation, or, perhaps even worse, he feels as though he needs to assert himself over others to prove his masculinity.
Or he just likes hurting people. I notice you bypassed the obvious, the most likely, to go for something that's less likely. If you hear hoofbeats, what's it more likely to be, horses or zebras? It's going to be horses, right? Now, what's more likely? This guy is insecure, or he's just sadistic and likes to hurt people?
He is only able to feel confident or powerful when he is kicking the shit out of others. This is not only indicative of deep insecurity, no matter how many...
Well, there you go. Again, you're calling him insecure. He's probably not insecure at all. This is probably a very confident man who just likes punching people in the face.
dudes he beats up, it's never going to make him feel man enough, but will only lead to him causing more mayhem, which is especially counterproductive considering that this is the antithesis of his entire profession. As Dalton puts it, Morgan does not possess the temperament for the trade.
That's true. He doesn't. He's a brawler and he likes to brawl. He likes to start fights. It has nothing to do with insecurity.
In contrast, later in the film, we see the character of Wade, played by Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott is the best thing in this film.
Who looks fucking unreal in this film, by the way, address a similar situation, but in far more disciplined fashion. After a drunk soldier tries to cop a feel on a stripper performing on stage, Wade jumps into action. But instead of taking the Morgan approach, a la just straight up wailing on the dude, which surely would cause the soldier's buddies to jump to their friend's defense, thus resulting in utter havoc as a huge-ass brawl breaks out, Wade pulls the soldier back and quickly diffuses the situation with a joke. No ego, no bravado, just a perfect...
Yeah, but you know something? Look how that girl's winking at him. So he's sacrificing that man to get a girl's attention. How is that mature? How is that manly or improving yourself? Mac? Right? He stops some other guy from copping a feel with the hopes that maybe he will cop a feel later. So your big brag is that men engage in the hierarchy How are you any different from Tate? You want to be a real man, you beat up other guys or you intimidate them. And then you get the girl, the special girl here.
Professional doing what needs to be done to resolve the conflict as peacefully as possible. Now, a usual retort will be, but what if the guy deserves it? Should
I mean, another thing too, right? See how that girl winked at him? Maybe he could have gotten himself a real job. But real jobs are low status and girls don't wink at you. Mac?
you just let him hurl insults at you and walk away? Should you let him threaten or even attack you and not teach this son of a bitch a lesson? And the answer is, if possible, yes. Always avoid conflict. Never engage beyond what is necessary. I know for a lot of young men, this is a difficult pill to swallow, but what you have to understand about people who bring about conflict like this is that not only do they themselves possess a dearth of impulse control and a lack of emotional management, but often these are people who have nothing in their life worth living for, who are so...
How do you know that? All kinds of guys who have things going for them still want to get laid and still get hit on women and get rejected and feel like shit afterwards. Dude, there was no reason for you to assert that, Mac. None.
angry or dissatisfied about their place in the world that they lash out like immature children.
What do you mean place in the world? What are you saying? They're not high status enough to have female company. That's what you mean.
As a man, you likely have people in your life you care about, who love you, and, most importantly, who depend on you. You cannot afford to put that at risk by letting some moron pick a fight with you. You winding up...
Did you show a silent, what's the name of that? A Quiet Place. Is this a quiet place? Yes, it is, isn't it? So in this movie, the dad gives his life for his children, right? He had to. It was written that way because it was written by a man. He wants to prove himself worthy. So your idea of being a man is to die for someone else. That's quite a life.
cannot afford
Be a disposable nobody.
to put that at risk by letting some moron pick a fight with you. You winding up in prison after beating their ass, or having them pull out a knife or gun and killing you over nothing. People like this, who have nothing to lose, have no problem throwing away their life over some bullshit.
How do you know this guy here has nothing to live for? Anyone can get angry and escalate. They're drinking, aren't they? Doesn't alcohol affect your decision making?
And they sure as hell have no qualms about taking you with them. A lesson that Dalton was forced to learn the hard way. We later learned that Dalton previously had relations with a woman who, unbeknownst to him, was married. Upon this
How was it unbeknownst, though? Right? Like when guys are going to get laid, they don't look for a ring on the woman's finger, do they? They don't care about who she with, right? They just say, I'm getting laid.
discovery, the husband pulled a gun on Dalton, and, in response, Dalton ripped the man's throat out, killing him.
He could have begged for his life, right? He could have begged for his life. That would be something that might have worked, right? And also it shows something about the husband too. Like, why didn't the husband shoot his wife? She's the one who cheated on him, not that guy, right? So notice one of the things you're missing out on, Mac, is like, why are men blaming other men when they keep their, catch their wives cheating? You don't seem to have any problem with that.
Now, as Wade relays to him, and I think we can all hopefully agree on, Defending yourself against a man who sticks a gun in your face is all fine and dandy. However, it is clear that, despite the killing being justified, this does.
Was it justified? That married man? Now, the one you showed is justified because that was an evil dude. He wanted to kill him just because he wanted to kill him. He was a vicious thug hired to do this guy in. The husband is a whole different ball of wax. He's just male hostile. Someone banged my special little girl, right? They're different scenarios.
Doesn't change the fact that because the husband didn't have the emotional control to realize Dalton wasn't at fault for sleeping with the woman he didn't know was married, Dalton must now live.
Oh, I got to correct myself. You did mention that. Right? Right, the guy gets heated. Right? But why would you expect emotional control from men all the time? Right? Like when you think about it, guys go into marriage with this idea that their woman's going to be faithful to them. She makes promises to him, right? What guy, Mac, goes into marriage thinking, well, she'll probably sleep around with me here and there from time to time, right? So he's reacting out of betrayal, right? But what I get disgusted at, he takes it out on the wrong person. He should have aimed the gun at his wife. She's the one who did the cheating.
With the guilt of his death for the rest of his life. Contrary to popular belief, or what you might see in movies, or if you're one of those dudes who constantly fantasizes about being an action hero, like those fucking unhinged dudes who daydream about someone breaking into their home.
I agree with you. This is what I've seen guys like this. They want someone to break into their house so they can shoot them. But look, there's the lady in the background, right? The woman gives a man permission to commit violence.
They can heroically gun them down, thus leading to their wife and kids finally respecting them. Violence.
Finally respecting them? What? Why would you say that? It's funny that you would make that assumption. I agree. Most married men are not respected. I agree with that. They enter into a contract where they have no rights. Why would any woman respect such a man? But you're probably not thinking about it along those lines, are you, Mac?
Is rarely, if ever, all that satisfying or triumphant. Anyone who has actually been in a real-life violent situation will tell you no different. Furthermore, it is also possible that Dalton is so distraught not just because he killed the man, but because he wonders if there could have been another way. Given his skills and capabilities, could Dalton have disarmed the man?
Well, we don't know because this is just a story, right? We can't judge.
Without killing him? Maybe Dalton knows that he allowed his emotions to get the better of him, and that killing the man was as a result of him losing his cool,
Again, you could say that, but they don't show that in the movie. So we can't judge.
Opposed to it being necessary. And he fears that if he begins to lose the
See the look on his face? This is what happens when you have actual pressure put on you. At the beginning, that beginning scene you showed, he had zero pressure on him. Everything was under his control. But man, you add pressure, totally different story.
Discipline that allows him to keep his emotions in check, what's to stop him from becoming unhinged? Which is exactly what we see come to pass as the film continues. After being constantly antagonized by Wesley...
See this guy here? See this guy here? He's the main villain. How much fist fighting did he do? None. Everyone sees this guy as powerful because he's the Don. He gets other men to do his bidding. He doesn't have to be strong, doesn't have to know how to fight, just has to be in charge.
A local crime boss who torments the innocent townsfolk, Dalton begins to lose his composure. becoming more erratic and unpredictable. Both Wade and Dalton's love interest Elizabeth showing concern for him, the latter calling Dalton.
Well, this movie, they really loved having women as the center of morality, right? Who is a woman to ever judge a man? This woman doesn't have to deal with this. No one's going to attack her and beat her up. She's under zero pressure. Who is she to talk?
Out, saying that his gripe with Wesley isn't just about protecting the townsfolk, but rather satiating his own desire for revenge. We see the philosophy Dalton has chose to live his life in accordance with begin to crumble. His emotions.
Well, is it just about revenge? Like this bad guy, he's not going to stop. Matter of fact, you're going to show at the very end, Mac, that they have to do this guy in. The townsfolk has to do this guy in. Because he had the law under his thumb. So vigilante justice had to be done one way or the other.
Getting the better of him, leading to him killing one of Wesley's henchmen, Jimmy, in the same fashion that he killed the other man. However,
again, and Jimmy, he wasn't misguided though, like the husband. He was a ruthless killer, was paid to do him in. Totally different situation.
Despite our fear that Dalton will lose sight of who he is, come the film's finale, when he has the chance to take vengeance on Wesley for all that he has done, Dalton is ultimately able to control his rage in the moment and refuses to land the killing blow.
Then he's part of the problem. Because if he doesn't do this guy in, the guy has power. He's just going to hire another bunch of thugs.
Him realizing that
if that was the way he felt, he should have just packed up and left, said, I can't do this job.
Allowing his emotions to dictate his actions is a fool's errand and will only lead to him losing everything he holds dear. Now, granted, the film isn't exactly the most, how should I say, thematically consistent. It's
watch this, guys.
Message of anti-violence just a tad undermined by the fact that it ends with the summary execution of Wesley by the other townsfolk.
So these other guys, are they lacking control when they murdered him? Are they not manly? Do you see now, Mac, how this manhood talk is just there to make a man a disposable servant? So they put this man in charge to deal with this monster, and then you cut the legs out from under him and say, you can't kill him. But the townsfolk can kill him. No, this film is everything opposite of what you're trying to talk about. The end message was that you're a badass, you kick ass, you get the girl. That's what this film is about. Do those town folks have the right to murder this man? No more than this he did, right? So if they can kill him, why not him? Why not our hero, right?
Regardless, all in all, Dalton is a...
How is that taking responsibility? They basically set this guy up so he can wash his hands of the sin. Someone else took it from him. The townsfolk was his scapegoat. You don't have to deal with the messiness of doing what needs to be done. You want pork chops, you don't have to go to the slaughterhouse and do it yourself.
Fantastic role model for a young man to aspire to. A man who is fully capable of defending himself and others, yet has the discipline.
So, defending yourself is what you say is a good man? I thought that wasn't necessary. I thought the goodness of the man had to do with his inner qualities. This is why I say you're worse than Tate, Mac. You contradict yourself all the time.
Discipline to control his capability for violence and only use it when absolutely necessary. To not allow his
When you let that guy go, he was going to murder him. If the town folks didn't come and save his ass, he would have been dead. Take the townsfolk out. He would have been shot dead, and what would the message have been? It would have been the hero was a little bitch. He let the villain win.
emotions to get the better of him, to keep a cool head and clear mind, even in potentially deadly situations.
Let's see. Do you got any more? Yeah, we better continue.
Who is confident in his abilities and does not feel as though he has to prove his masculinity to others. And finally, who understands that walking away instead of being a...
Again, he wasn't walking away from that. He wasn't walking away from a fight. He kicked those two guys out. That's what his job was. Once they walked out on their own, they just closed the doors on them. They made fools out of them. Any woman seeing this would see this guy is in charge and the hero again. Mac, you don't have the wisdom to talk to young guys.
sign of cowardice or weakness can in fact be a sign of strength and security. Now, as a final note, there is something I unfortunately feel I must address.
Yeah,
One
go
of
ahead.
my biggest peeves about most manosphere content is that, despite it claiming to be about focusing on men's self-improvement, the vast majority of it ultimately devolves into just shitting on women. Trying to become secure in your
Really? Really? Okay.
own masculinity by seeking the validation of women is putting the cart before the horse. If
There you go. You're about getting the girl. You're about getting the girl, dude. You're not about personal improvement.
you want success with women, you first need to become a man of worth. However, as
What is a man of worth, though? This woman here is with the guy who kicks ass. You have to have status. Mac, you have to become somebody. This guy was in charge of a bunch of other men. He had status. And that's what his beautiful babe here is attracted to.
I understand that we live in a world that constantly bombards men with the idea that their worth is almost entirely dependent on their success with women, I do feel that
Well, you just admitted. Get the cart before the horse. You didn't say, hey, getting the girl is just a waste of your time. You didn't say that, did you? So you value it too.
the need to address a common retort to the lesson discussed in this video, which is, sure, I might have no interest in entertaining some asshole by getting into a stupid brawl, but what if there are chicks watching? What if they see me walking away as a sign of cowardice? What if they mistake my self-discipline as me just being a pussy? Contrary to what any
Well, women do love blood, dude. If you deny this, you're in denial of reality. Upper class women in Rome, they went to the gladiatorial arenas to see men cut each other. And they would sneak around and bang those guys. They would bang the winners. So if you deny this, you are someone who shouldn't be talking to young men at all.
grifting dipshit on YouTube says, the idea that most women are somehow turned on by a dude acting like a belligerent, violent toddler is complete and utter bullshit.
No, you're complete and utter bullshit. The gals do shack up with the guys who commit violence. The thugs have women around them all the time. For you to deny this means you are a fool or you're a liar. Mac? Now, which is it?
That is not to say these women don't exist, but like dudes who feel as though they need to pick fights with others in order to feel like big, strong, manly boys, it is simply
So you're admitting this is a turn on for women. I'm glad. Right.
A sign of emotional immaturity. The idea that a woman who is actually worth your time would be appalled by you deciding to be the bigger man and not get into it with some stupid asshole is utter fantasy. Case
Nonsense. Nonsense. She might say, I was going to get turned on by the blood, just like the gladiatorial arenas. This guy chickened out.
in point, take Elizabeth. Again, it is not as if Dalton is a coward. He is clearly a man who is capable of defending himself and others if necessary, something universally considered an admirable trait. However,
So being a servant, being a provider and a attack dog, a plow horse and a attack dog. Wow, that's a real evolved man, Mac.
as we see, Elizabeth isn't impressed by Dalton's displays of violence later in the film, denoting
But she is turned on by his violence. She is turned on by his status. Again, he wasn't just a bouncer. He was the head bouncer with men underneath him. He has status and he gets into fights. That's what turned her on.
that they are not the actions of a man who is only doing what he must to protect those weaker than him, but a man who has been slighted and feels he must prove himself to who exactly? To himself? Others? Yet all this ultimately
Well, that villain, he meant harm to people. That's why the town folks killed him. So what you're talking about, has nothing to do with the film.
he does is make him seem like an insecure little boy who has no control over
No, he's not insecure here. He's under pressure. He's a man under pressure. He's under danger. Mac, you are pathetic to say this.
emotions, something any high-quality woman has no patience for.
High quality woman. Wow, that doesn't sound like a red pillar. That doesn't sound like Tate or any of these other guys, does it? You're using their lingo.
But what if you do find yourself with a woman who does exhibit this behavior, who sees
Well, thank you for admitting that women do exhibit that behavior. And guys, they don't have the choice. Guys have to take what they can get, dude. This good-looking woman, she came on to a guy, he'd be going for it. Because either that or do without. Guys don't throw away opportunities.
you not starting beef with drunk randos as a sign that you are not a real man. I am so glad
This woman was attracted to him, then she would be attracted to a guy who's not a real man. You didn't show self-control. You harmed other guys. That turned me on. So her idea of a real man is different from what yours is. Can you see why masculinity is a wasted term? That an evolved man will drop it.
asked, this is a poll. Now, go to your local hardware store.
We're not going to go any further than this because this is BS, right? If guys were like this, then our hero wouldn't have had to murder someone, right? Because he caught him with his wife. Anyway, I've said everything I need to you, Mac, and I just want you to think about this too. This is the most important thing. How when you're looking for evidence, realize that Google can and will switch up what it says overnight. This is what I got when I looked at it in the morning. This is what I got when I looked at it again, the same link, the next day. I'm just giving you a heads up. Before you deal with men's issues, realize you don't know anything about men's issues. Understand? Thank you.